will be given in alphabetical order. I think most of them will come to the podium to give their opening statements. They will have 2 minutes, and the first person up is Mr. Bernie Ash.
Thank you very much. My name is Bernie Ash, and I am running for re-election as Mayor of Lebanon, my hometown. First of all, I want to thank Ms. Mayor Harris and the Black History Committee for providing this opportunity for all of us. And I want to thank Bob and Pam Black for providing this beautiful building for us to meet in tonight. I want to tell you a little bit about myself and who I am. I think it's important that you know who as well as why you're voting for someone. If you want to know what I've done in government, haven't done, what I need to do, I've got a 22-year history in local politics, and I have a record that you can go back and check on. I was born and raised here in Lebanon. My family has been living, working, worshiping, and playing here for at least the last 5 generations. I grew up in the 60s on North Cumberland Street. North Cumberland is a working class neighborhood. At that time was made up of factory workers, carpenters, retail workers, and other good, hard-working people. It was a great neighborhood, had a wonderful childhood there. My father was a well driller, and my mother worked for the phone company. My dad only had an 8th grade education, but he was one of the smartest and wisest people I've ever known in my life. Some of the things I remember him saying to me, my brother's here, and he's probably heard these things too. I remember my dad said, "If you can help a man, help him." Simple as that. He also said, "Don't lie to me, boy." Daddy didn't like liars and raised my brother and I to be honest with people. He also said, if you want to get ahead, work harder and work longer. And we did that a lot drilling wells. If things got rough, you tightened up, you worked harder, and you stayed out there longer. It's a way of life. Okay. I had a little more, but okay.
And the second speaker will be Mr. Rick Bell.
Before I start tonight, I'd like for us to remember the Conrad family. Mr. and Ms. Conrad have been friends of my family for a long time. I know they've been friends with a lot of you too, so let's please remember them tonight. My name is Rick Bell, and I'm a lifelong resident of Lebanon. I went to public schools here. I graduated from Lebanon High School. For the past 20 years, I've taught history at Cumberland University. My family has been here for generations, and they've instilled in me a passion to serve the community. Right now, I'm the city historian. I serve on the executive committee for Fillers Grove. I serve on the boards of Historic Lebanon, Empower Me Day Camp, Leadership Wilson. I'm a member of the Lebanon Rotary Club, and I was a member of the City Council. Over the past few months, as I've spoken with people, they've asked me, why are you running for mayor? And my answer is, this is my hometown. I love this city. I grew up here. I'm gonna spend the rest of my life here. This city defines my past and my future. And I wanna work to make sure that's a positive future for everybody in this city. Now, there's 4 ways I feel like that we can do that. One is through financial responsibility, effectively managing your tax dollars. Another one is through smart growth, protecting our established neighborhoods. Another one is quality of life, providing our citizens with the amenities they deserve. And also Lebanon's identity, protecting this special place that's always been. That's very important. So I care about this city. That's why I'm running. And it would be an honor to serve this city and to work with you and to work for you as Mayor of Lebanon. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bell. Mr. Cesternino.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for coming tonight. And regardless who you're here to support, thank you for participating in the process. Voter apathy, it's a crisis in our nation, and we all need to participate and be part of our future. My name is Rob Cesternino. I've lived in Lebanon for about 13 years. It is an amazing community that has welcomed us in. My wife and I have raised our 6 children all across this great United States as I've served in the military. Been on 3 different continents. We've been in over 15 states. We chose Lebanon for our forever home. I graduated high school in Atlanta, Georgia in the mid-1980s. I remember watching the population calculator roll over 1 million people across from Piedmont Hospital. Now it's approximately 5.5 million people. I have a bunch of family that lived out in Marietta, and the reason that we picked Lebanon is because Lebanon reminds me of Marietta in the mid-80s. I remember when the square was shuttered. I remember when there was no opportunities. And I also remember when Marietta became part of Atlanta. Ladies and gentlemen, we have to protect this city, but make no mistake, we are going to be part of Greater Nashville. And we need leadership that is experienced. We need leadership that is results-oriented. And we need leadership that is prepared to lead us as we have to make these decisions and accept our role. We have to have leadership. I'm going to be the only candidate that's going to talk about recovery. On the 3rd of March, we were gut punched. And then we were followed up after the tornado with the coronavirus. And we are waking up in something that changes every day. I am experienced as a military leader to lead in time of crisis and time of change. I am flexible, I am results oriented, and I will certainly get the job done for this community that I love so much. Thank you very much.
And the final opening comment, Mr. John DeMoor.
Rusty, Mary Harris, thank you for this opportunity in the Wilson County Black History Committee. I've lived in Lebanon since 2003. As a citizen, I've been fighting against corruption in City of Lebanon government for the last 5.5 years. My campaign website, howtheyvoted.com, features evidence only from the public record. One example, illegal ordinances. Historic overlay Green Lawn Drive, my street. Even after the city council was informed there are no historic structures on Green Lawn Drive, they passed the ordinance anyway, with no qualification as a historic district as per the United States Department of the Interior. I filed an official ethics complaint against city government, according to the city charter. The city attorney and current mayor have refused to obey the charter to convene an investigation. Contractors suing and or threatening to sue city government when their lowest bid on a project was not selected as per the city charter. Citizens suing and threatening to sue city government for violations of the Open Meetings Act of 1974, most recently earlier this month of July. During these 5.5 years, all 3 of my opponents have been on the city council and one is the current mayor, while I have fought unsuccessfully to get city government to obey all the laws. As your next mayor, I will put a stop to this lawlessness. From day one, everyone in city government, elected and hired, everyone doing business with our city government will obey all the laws or be removed as a result of breaking the public trust. When it is within my power as mayor, I will remove those who break the law. When as mayor I don't have that power, then I'll let the voting public know it's up to them to get rid of those who break our laws. On the economics of Lebanon, one example, I will arrange meetings with every department head to determine what they need to become absolutely efficient in their department. Then I'll work up a plan to get each department what they need for efficiency. Of course, we may need to stop buying $1 million mansion here and there. Finally, courtesy and cooperation. I want to foster a new attitude of courtesy, respect, and cooperation between our city government and citizens. I want citizens to know we're doing everything we can to run our city honestly and efficiently. Thank you.
That concludes the opening statements. Now we'll get right to the questions. Tonight we have 4 questions that we'll pose to the candidates. Each candidate will answer the same question. We're not doing a hardball to one and a softball to another. Again, the order they will respond depends on the drawing we did before the forum began. So, for the first question, and again, the candidates do have the ability to ask for me to repeat the question before they come to the microphone. The first question for our 4 candidates. The COVID-19 pandemic continues to impact all of our lives, both individually and collectively. In the short term, there is no end in sight to the health and economic difficulties resulting from the pandemic. We are all still adjusting to the new normal. Similarly, the City of Lebanon's budget is not immune to that impact, and reductions in revenue are predicted. If elected as the next mayor, how do you plan to deal with the anticipated budget shortfalls? Furthermore, do you expect the city will be able to maintain current services and adequately respond to the continued growth of the city? According to the draw, Mr. DeMoor will respond first.
Thank you, Rusty. Well, I believe as long as we continue to follow the common sense guidelines, we can cooperate with each other and beat back this virus. As far as the economic side of it, I was going through the budget and I noticed, as an example, we have 10 bonds that we're dealing with as far as debt load. Take a look at those bonds. I'd like to know when those bonds are going to meet maturity so that we can get an estimated or an exact target of when some of these debts will be relieved. For example, one of the bonds was taken out in 1998 and refinanced in 2008. So I want to take a look at these and see if we can reduce some of this debt. I know we have some surplus. I know we're going to have economic problems going forward. I'll take another look at the budget to see if anything else can be a little more detailed as far as how much debt we're incurring, perhaps quarterly. I've been dealing with corporate business for 40 years, traveling around the country and some other parts of the world. So I know about budgets, I know about logistics, and I know how to trim when something needs to be trimmed and perhaps build up something that needs to be built up and figure out the revenue source at that point. If it isn't there, then I'll inform the citizens that it's not here, and we'll take a look at it in the near future according to this current situation and the situation at that time. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Cesternino.
Is this working? So I served 2 terms as the Mayor Pro Tem. And if you look in the city's charter, the Mayor Pro Tem is voted on by the other members of the council as who they want to be their leader if the mayor is ever incapacitated or he can no longer perform his duties. And also, they are supposed to be the council's representative with the Finance Commissioner. When I joined the council, and then when I became Mayor Pro Tem, the fund balance has dramatically increased, and that's the amount of extra money that we have in the fund balance. I'm a Department of Defense certified financial manager. There is not a candidate up here that understands governmental finances more than me. During the time that I was on the council, we did some smart decisions. I worked with Finance Commissioner Springer. Every single one of those bonds that we were referred to, we got them down to 3%. My question is, at this time, has the current administration, as interest rates are down around 0, have we refinanced those bonds again to get us lower? That will generate more money for the city. Every year when a budget is submitted in my administration, every department head in conjunction with their budget will also submit a 2.5%, a 5.5%, a 7.5%, and a 10% budget reduction plan. The one thing that I learned as an emergency manager, I'm a graduate of FEMA's Emergency Management Institute. When things go sideways and you have a crisis, it is too late to develop your plan then. That is the time that you execute the plan that you already have. And every year the department heads will renew those budget reduction plans, because what the fire department could have done without last year, maybe 12 months later, we have to adjust. We have to be fiscally responsible, never forgetting that we are managing your money, not ours. If you allow government is like me when my wife makes a Reese's pie. If you leave me alone with it, I will eat it all and look for more. We've got to control government. We have to determine, did we really need that brand new car, or could we gotten a used vehicle? Is this a need or is it a want? And here's a more important question with our finances that my administration is going to ask every day. When we get to work, we're going to say, what can we do for the citizens and the businesses of Lebanon? And then when we end the day, we're going to say, what have we done? We need to be fiscally responsible. We need to make smart decisions with our money. And we'll be fine. Right now, everyone seems to be operating in this city in a bubble, like they don't see that there's a problem, because we have disproportionately inflated numbers because of the online retail sales. Ladies and gentlemen, make no mistake, as I was at Mokara the other night, and we saw a restaurant owner on his last night shutting his doors, and Dickey's Barbecue closed their doors. We have financial issues, but as long as we have a plan, as long as we have experienced, results-oriented leadership, we will be fine. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Ash.
Thank you, Rusty. We started out with the COVID virus. As you know, after the March 3rd tornado came through, as we were getting it cleaned up, once we got it all cleaned up and got Lebanon ready to go again, we were hit with the COVID virus. The virus is real. We need to understand that it's real and deal with it. There are several points of view about wear a mask, don't wear a mask. I don't know who to believe. My idea is that let's don't take any chances. Wear the mask, social distance, take care of yourself, take care of others. Now, as it affects the budget, well, the tornado and the COVID virus, we didn't know how our sales tax revenue was going to come in from March, April, May, and June. And we've been watching those numbers very carefully, and they have come in actually over last year's revenues. This is good to know. Part of that is because of the half-cent sales tax that was passed. It helped with our sales tax. The first thing that we did, we were working on the budget at that time. I presented a status quo budget. Everything is going to stay as it is. We will look at it again in September and see if we can make adjustments and maybe pick up some of the programs that we are holding off on, some of the purchases that we may need to make, and we will make those decisions then. But as of now, things are looking pretty good. Now, things that the city did to fight the virus. The city never did shut down. We continued to operate. We sent people home to work from home. We closed the lobby in at the main building, but to pay your water bill, gas bill, you can still go through the drive-through. If you needed to talk to the engineers, any of the other departments, you could call, make an appointment. They would meet you downstairs. One of the things that I did first, and one of the hardest things I had to do, was shut down the senior center. A lot of those people, I just got a few seconds to go. We have tried to take care of our employees and take care of our citizens, and I think we've done a good job, and we are back at work now, still taking precautions, and we will continue to do that.
Thank you. And last for question one, Mr. Bell.
A few weeks ago, I was talking to a gentleman and he asked a question. Have you ever seen anything that affected every aspect of our life, like COVID-19 has? And who would have thought something like this would ever happen? It's obviously affected our health, our physical health, our mental health. It's affected the things we take for granted. Everybody's wearing masks. We can't see each other smile. So it's affected everything. It's also affected the economy. My wife owns a small business here in town, and we know the effects of this. We talk about it all the time. And the question is, what can the city do? Well, one thing the city can do is tighten its belt. And Mr. Cesternino used a lot of big words, but that's really, that's really what it boils down to, tighten its belt. And Mayor Ash just said that he was in a status quo budget. Well, the status quo budget, in his own words, is the same as last year. But this year isn't like last year. This year's going to be different. So the status quo budget doesn't work. We have to look for cuts. We have to look for places where we can save money, because if businesses are doing it and homeowners are doing it, that they expect government to do it as well. Now, I'm not going to go in and ask for across-the-board cuts across all departments, because some departments run more efficiently than others. But there do need to be cuts out there. And to do that, we need better budget management. We need a mayor who understands that the budget is his responsibility and not the responsibility of the department heads. We need a mayor who, when a department head brings a spending measure across his desk, the answer is not, it looks good, do what you want. The answer should be maybe. Do we need this now? Can we wait till later? Is this something we have to have? And also talk to the finance director. He's the expert, and find out what that spending measure will do to the city's budget. And once all that information is put together, the mayor has to make a decision. And that decision could be yes. And then the mayor should lead that and lead that fight. But the answer could be no, and it stops at the mayor's office. And the department head understands that, because the mayor's the boss. Managing your tax dollars is his responsibility, and that's what I will do as mayor. Manage your tax dollars effectively. If this budget comes up short, we can't put a tax increase on people who are struggling.
30 seconds.
We already had a 41% tax increase last year. We can't do that again. We have to cut. And one more thing about COVID, I believe it's during these times that you really need communication from the top, from the leadership. Over the past few months, we really haven't had that. People want to hear from those they've elected to say, what's the city doing? What's happening out there? To reassure them that things are going to be better. They will be better.
Time.
Thank you.
Thank you. That completes the first round of questions on question one. Now for question two. And the order for these responses will be Mr. Cesternino, Mr. Ash, Mr. Bell, and Mr. DeMoor. The second question. The decisions you will make as mayor will undoubtedly have short-term and long-term ramifications on the quality of life for the citizens of Lebanon. This is a two-part question. Can you describe your vision for Lebanon and how it will enhance the quality of life for citizens in all parts of the city as our community continues to grow? The second part of the question. Many citizens also want to preserve what they perceive as Lebanon's small town feel, while at the same time attracting new businesses to the area. How does your vision balance these wants? Mr. Cesternino.
The city of Lebanon has some amazing attributes. Think about it. We're next to a lake. We have an airport. We have a train station that has multiple stations. We have a 4-year institution of higher learning. and we have a Vanderbilt University hospital. Those things, when marketed properly, sell themselves. Someone asked me when I came on the council 10 years ago, what did you see Lebanon as? I saw Lebanon as a transit-oriented extension of Nashville that had great quality of life. And I ran on certain promises. I said I will pay more attention to quality of life. I got the lily pad built on the backside of Don Fox Park to alleviate some of the parking and give the kids an area to play. I said that I would get a dog park built. I got a dog park built. I said that I would increase money for trailheads and sidewalks, and I did that. I worked with Rick, and we worked pretty hard to get a park built. That was a tough road to hoe, because you're talking about Lebanon going through a shift in its culture. It's a cultural shift. So we need to communicate, we need to collaborate, we need to get consensus. Sometimes we need to be ready to compromise, and then we need to work as a team, understanding that it's our responsibility to leave Lebanon a better place for our kids and our grandkids. Give me the second part of the question one more time.
The second part was, many citizens also want to preserve what they perceive as Lebanon's small town feel,
Absolutely.
while at the same time attracting new businesses to the area. How does your vision balance these wants?
Think about the assets that I labeled for you, and then throw into there a zoning plan where if you're zoned in one piece of property, you can't do 87 different things with that property. It's more refined. Increase the design standards, so if you invest and you make a beautiful building, and somebody wants to go next to you and say a White Castle, you know that based on the high design standards of the city, that your investment is going to be protected. If we protect everyone's investments and we have fair, consistent, yet stringent expectations of people that want to come here, we're going to attract quality people. We have to go out and recruit the type of projects we want to come to Lebanon.
30 seconds.
When I'm your mayor, within 90 days, I will tell you if we meet the requirements for a Costco. You have to reach out to their regional people and say, okay, what are the requirements? What do we need to do to get a Costco? The type of projects that we want here, we need to actively recruit as a team, find out what we're looking for, then work with the council to get those things and to bring them here. And as long as we're stringent and we're fair and we're consistent, we will grow in a positive way that leaves this place a much better place for our kids and our grandchildren. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Ash? Yes, sir. The question is, the decisions you will make as mayor will undoubtedly have short-term and long-term ramifications on the quality of life for the citizens of Lebanon. The first part of the question, can you describe your vision for Lebanon and how it will enhance the quality of life for citizens in all parts of the city as our community continues to grow? The second part, many citizens also want to preserve what they perceive as Lebanon's small town feel, while at the same time attracting new businesses to the area. How does your vision balance these wants?
Thank you very much. I was born and raised here. I guess I'm the oldest member up here. I grew up in the 60s in Lebanon. I know what that small town feel was like then. Snow White, Circle the Square, all of those things. The square itself. Since then, we have built parks. The Don Fox Park is one of the nicest, I think, in Tennessee. We have that. When I was elected, the Stockade Park for children to play on had become run down, and we put $500,000 into rebuilding that park and adding handicap swings and slides and things that handicapped children could use and be safe in. Also, when I was first elected, there was some of our members here we're trying to build a $5 million park and put it at Hermitage Springs. I felt the $5 million for one park was too much money to spend. What I did, I vetoed it. The veto was overridden immediately. We came back and the bid came in over $6 million, so we did not build that park. They had already borrowed the $5 million. What I did was take the $5 million, and this is for quality of life projects. My vision, and I started on it, is to have several neighborhood parks, hopefully one in each district before we're through. We've already built one out on South Heartland Drive. We have another being built in Kalo Bend, where a lot of growth is happening, a lot of houses are being built. I'm planning another one, a very small park by the water department on Carver Lane. There's a pond already there. This will be very small for the neighbors who live in those apartments and houses around there to come and use. We also took money, some of that money, and bought 150 acres on Highway 231 South, so that in the future we can build a sports complex that will have soccer, baseball, softball, hopefully football, other things that hopefully
30 seconds.
Okay. Hopefully we'll bring people there. Now let's talk about businesses coming in. The first thing I did was we have an economic director who does a very good job. I hired a consulting firm, resource, to help her. They have engineers, they have real estate agents that go to all the conventions around the country, and they have already brought several businesses into Lebanon. And those are, thank you.
I want to take just a moment and thank the candidates for being so observant of the rules in the audience. I wish my kids listened to me that much when they were growing up. We're staying right on schedule. So, Mr. Bell.
One of the things that Mayor Ash left out was when the bids for the park came in over budget, I asked the city council to not accept those bids, and they didn't. And then my last days on the city council, I voted in favor of letting the mayor spend that money in other places throughout the city, because we do need parks and we need greenways, and that's a very important part of the quality of life. There are other aspects of quality of life as well. Navigable sidewalks that people can actually walk on that aren't crooked, that go throughout the city. Restaurants, as Rusty mentioned, and places of entertainment, and places to shop. So quality of life is important, but a very important aspect of quality of life, I believe, is that everyone in this city feels safe and is safe in their neighborhoods and their homes. And that's something obviously our police department works very hard on. And that's something that we should all expect and we all deserve. But the key to keep our small town feel and having quality of life, I believe, comes down to one thing, and that's smart growth. Protecting our established neighborhoods. When I was on city council, there was a neighborhood that was going to come into Blair Lane that simply did not match that area, and we defeated it. There was a neighborhood that was going down on Taylor Peeler Road that simply didn't fit, and we defeated it. There was a neighborhood out near Johnson Heights that I helped Fred Burton defeat as well. We need to make sure our neighborhoods are protected, and that requires a plan. And right now, there's not a plan in place. When we were on city council, we created the comprehensive plan, which is a committee of citizens to look at the future of this city, to talk about the future land use and tell future developers, this is what we want in a certain place. That plan is supposed to take 1 year to complete. As of right now, it's in year 3, and it's still not finished. We have to have more urgency than that. If we don't, we'll get overwhelmed. I will put plans in place. I will put more plans in place than that. The Hartman Drive corridor study is something we did when I was on council to make Hartman Drive develop more. That plan still has been put into effect, and that's been years ago. The Sparta Pike economic study was put into effect when I was on city council. That plan has not been utilized. We have 4 interstate exits, and we're not utilizing all of them for retail, for tax revenues, property tax revenues, sales tax. Sparta Pike, I would love to see a Red Lobster out there. and a hotel. We have an expo center out there. That should attract business.
30 seconds.
But the key to this is a plan, and another key is adequate infrastructure. Hartman Drive was built years ago out towards the interstate past I-40. People wonder why there's not many restaurants out there and there's a lot of open land. That's because the city of Lebanon at the time did not have the foresight to put a sewer line in that road. They tore up the ground, spent millions of dollars, but did not go through that extra step. That was a lack of foresight. If that had been put in,
Time, Mr. Bell.
we'd have a lot of things out there. Thank you.
And the final speaker for question 2, Mr. DeMoor.
Short and long term, I'm going to stress, as your next mayor, that all the laws be obeyed. When city government starts doing that, the people will get the idea, mutual respect and cooperation. I think we can leave the zoning as it is intact so that we can preserve the neighborhoods and build up the industrial and light industrial areas, which will help our economy overall, short term and long term, the virus panic notwithstanding. I think that government cooperating with the citizens, not micromanaging everything, keeping in mind the codes and the zoning, as I said, so that we can preserve. In the coming weeks, I'm going to be releasing my economic plan, which deals with prosperity and preservation. I think we can do both. I think we can do that as a city. I think we can do that as a government without prying in and making little micromanaging things. For example, the historic Green Lawn overlay situation that I've been dealing with for 5.5 years. Before the final vote, all of our neighbors, including me, were given a booklet about this thick. And one of the most ridiculous things in the restrictions, I couldn't decide what kind of a mailbox I wanted on my home. This is the kind of thing that I don't believe is for Lebanon. I don't think government should get involved in micromanaging things like that. I think as neighbors, we can all obey the zoning laws and the safety codes and preserve our neighborhood while we're growing Lebanon. Lebanon's going to be growing whether we like it or not, and I think we need to embrace it and do it wisely. Preserving, looking forward to prosperity. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, we've finished the first round of Jeopardy. Now let's go to Double Jeopardy, where the questions may get a little bit harder. We'll see. The third question, and the order of the responses will be Mr. Ash, Mr. Bell, Mr. DeMoor, and Mr. Cesternino. The question reads as follows. Following the death of George Floyd, many cities across the nation have been filled with protest about abuses committed by members of various police forces. While the vast majority of these protests have been peaceful, others unfortunately have resulted in violence and destruction. As the next mayor, what steps would you take to enhance programs already in place in Lebanon, or what new programs would you introduce to ensure that members of the Lebanon Police Department are properly trained, monitored, and following professional best practices in dealing with the complexities of their job with all members of our city? Mr. Ash.
This is a good question. I've watched the news just like you have and seen the destruction and the violence that has happened all across the nation. We've had several protests here in Lebanon. We have one of the most professional police departments in the state. And I'll stand by them anytime. They are fair, they treat everybody with respect and provide safety. When the first protesters came, our chief of police met with them to make sure that they understood that they were welcome to constitutionally protest in Lebanon. You're welcome to. Our police will protect you, will keep the traffic off of you, keep anyone from harming you while you constitutionally protest your cause. But the first incident of violence, you will be arrested and put in jail. We had some people wanting to institute eight principles for the police department to follow. They're already doing it. Our police department does not condone unnecessary violence. I know of one case where a policeman mistreated a lady in her car. Our chief of police, with my approval, fired that officer. And it will happen to any police officer who does not respect the public and avoid unnecessary violence. I think we have already solved that problem in Lebanon.
Thank you. Mr. Bell.
When I watched and read about the murder of George Floyd, the first thing in my mind was the injustice of it all. And the next thing in my mind was two things. One was to contact Police Chief Mike Justice and ask him what the protocols are for Lebanon Police Department. And he immediately sent that to me. And one of those protocols was in subduing a suspect that did not cut off the airway. But there's something else that Chief Justice told me. He said, we can always work to be better. And that's something I believe our police department is doing. As mayor, that's something that I will expect them to do. A former student of mine, who's a police officer now in another city, put on Facebook when all that was, when everything was happening, he said that people he works with, sometimes they like going to the gun range to train, but they don't like training on subduing suspects. We need to train in all of it and make sure we do everything correctly and do everything right. The next thing that entered my mind was the fact that some people say, well, that would never happen in Lebanon. Well, it has. And I thought back to Mr. Adams, who was sitting at home one night, and there was a drug raid that went to the wrong house. It went to his house, and he was killed. And as mayor and as police chief, it's our job to make sure that never happens here again. But as mayor, it's also my job to make sure that every voice is heard on important issues. It's my job to make sure that everybody in this city is treated with respect. It's also my job to make sure that everybody is safe in their neighborhoods and their homes. That's everybody in the city. And that's what I'll work to do as mayor. And that's what I thought about as I looked at all that. We have not been untouched by this, but we need to be and have to be untouched by it in the future. Thank you.
Mr. DeMoor.
I've spoken with police officers already since the incident, Mr. Floyd, and I've also spoken with retired police officers from Lebanon. And I'm confident that the proper training is there, and therefore my issue goes to protesters. Peaceful protesting, absolutely. But when a protester decides to break the law, they've also decided on the consequences. And again, I'm confident that our police force has been well trained and they know the limits and they know how to do their job. Police should be able to defend themselves, period. As your mayor, I'll make sure that that is understood, because I already understand that they understand their training and they're well trained. And so I think that kind of communication has already been done between me, the citizen, and the police officers that I've spoken with. Thank you.
Mr. Cesternino.
What a great question. I'm the only person up on this stage that has been a sworn police officer. I was a uniformed officer in the metro Atlanta area, and I was a senior special agent with the Georgia Bureau of Investigation. I was on Newt Gingrich's security detail when he was Speaker of the House, and I was one of the case agents for the Centennial Park bombing. So I've been through the training. I understand the training. What we saw was not reflective of the training. What will we do here in the city of Lebanon? We have a citizens review board for the police department that I've been told hardly ever meets. The review board will meet monthly with the leaders of the police department to ensure that we have the dialogue before we have an issue. I will ask every member of that review board, as well as every council member and myself, to sit through the Lebanon Police Department's use of force in service every year. I don't care what side of the issue you fall on this. If you haven't sat through the training, you don't know in your heart of hearts how they were trained. So our council, the mayor, and the Citizens Review Board will sit in the room with those officers. They will have a working knowledge annually of the city's use of force policy. They will have an understanding of how our officers are trained. So God forbid a situation like that were ever to arise in Lebanon, we will have the information and we will have the data. But the great thing about Lebanon is its sense of community. God forbid anything like that ever happened here, the protesters would not be from Lebanon. They would be people from outside of Lebanon looking to create the scenarios that we have. Because the one thing that I have learned in Lebanon, I represented the second largest black community and the largest Hispanic community in the 3rd Ward. And the one thing I was told, and I live it, I will never speak for you, but I will always stand beside you. And in the city of Lebanon, we will stand beside our police, but we will stand beside our people, and we will do the right thing, no matter how difficult it is, 10 times out of 10, because 9 is not good enough. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That concludes question 3. Now for the final question of the night. And the order will be Mr. Bell, Mr. DeMoor, Mr. Cesternino, and Mr. Ash. The question is as follows. Monuments to Confederate soldiers have been a hot discussion topic for some time now, but the intensity of that debate has increased dramatically in recent months. That debate lives among us with the continued presence of the General Hatton statue in the center of the town square. Realizing that some people in Lebanon consider the statue an appropriate remembrance of one of Lebanon's prominent citizens of that era, while other people in Lebanon consider the statue as an affront to the very concept of one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If elected as the next mayor, how would you work to resolve this contentious issue? Mr. Bell.
I've talked to people on both sides of the issue, and I can remember when Mayor Ash was beginning meetings with people, I got a message from a member of the Tennessee Historical Commission, and they asked me, does the mayor realize he has no authority over that statue? In 2013, the state legislature passed the Heritage Protection Act, which does not allow the removal of any monument from a public place. Instead of focusing on what we cannot do, I would rather focus on what we can do. And that's put up monuments and markers, not just on the square, but throughout the city, that tells a fuller story of Lebanon's history. I am the city historian. I've studied it. I know there's more out there. My first instinct as a historian was to provide a fuller context on the square about the Civil War era, about slavery, and tell the complete story of that time period and the trauma that people went through. But since then, I've listened to other people who have other ideas. Some people say that we should put up monuments to 20th century accomplishments and people and get away from the 1800s and focus on more recent history, and I agree with that. We don't talk about the 20th century enough. We also have people talk about how we should put up artwork that displays the unity of Lebanon as it is now, and modern Lebanon, and who we are today and not who we were in the 1860s. I've heard people talk about putting up monuments to black citizens who made great accomplishments. And all of those are great ideas. In fact, all of it should be done. But those decisions should not be made by the mayor or the city council. Those decisions of what's added to tell our story should be made by the citizens. So as mayor, I will put together a committee of citizens, of people from all walks of life, to decide what we put up, where we put them, and tell our complete story. Because I promise you, our complete story is not about one man standing in the middle of the square. It's about 200 years now of a city that's, yes, had its problems, but a city that's had great things as well. And we need to recognize all of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. DeMoor.
I have never understood prejudice or racism as being in anybody's psyche. I think it's terribly wrong. Monuments, General Hatton statue as an example, it depends on your point of view, and I'm not diminishing anybody's point of view. But our U.S. Constitution starts out with the three most powerful words, we the people. It doesn't differentiate skin color, religion, lifestyle choice. That means all of us. The 14th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution says equal treatment in the law. Very clear. There's no way to say that any other way. Jesus said, love one another as I have loved you. Very simple. So if you want to go the secular role or the religious role, it's all there. We're all in this together. E pluribus unum. Out of the many, one. As far as the statue is concerned of General Hatton, I wrote a letter to the Tennessean, and it never got published, but I wrote the letter nonetheless, and I approached the subject about, I see General Hatton's statue almost on a daily basis. When I see that statue, I see the Confederate general, and that's the side that lost, largely because of the issue of slavery. It was wrong, and it's still wrong. Racism and prejudice is still wrong. That's the side that lost. But having said that, there are other aspects of the South, and some people like to embrace their heritage. Equal treatment in the law. Some people like that statue, some people don't. As an example, I understand that the ground underneath is private property. So therefore, I guess the issue would have to be taken up with the owner of the property. But the real final issue is racism and prejudice has no quarter in our life anymore. It's ridiculous. But let's get along together. Let's recognize that some people like it, some people don't. And let's, if we can, come together and figure out a way to either move it, but with the recognition that it may just stay there like it is if the majority of the people, including the owners, say that it should remain.
Mr. Cesternino.
So as the city councilman for Ward 3, I owned the general for 8 years as my responsibility to make sure what's going on with that. It became an issue one time when we were doing the safety project on the square. It's private property. The city has no standing. But what can the city do? The city can do the same thing that they are absent in doing right now, and that's provide leadership. The statue may move, the statue may not move. But what I'd like to see is what Miss Mary said, which is what hits the nail on the head. It's much more important to have a discussion about the pipeline of the black youth from high school to prison. What can we do to stop that? Let's stop talking about a statue. Let's go to the Sons of the Confederate Veterans and say, okay, you may not move it, but will you sponsor a minority scholarship so a child can get an education that can't afford one tomorrow? Will you help build a park in the 2nd Ward because the current mayor bragged about paying almost $600,000 just to rehab the park at Fox Park. But if you go into the second ward, there is nothing for our children on that side of town. When I was on the council, I worked with Mayor Burton. We bought that building right across from Coles Ferry that was adjacent to the gym and the senior center. And our vision for that was a community center. TVs, ping pong tables, billiards, place for kids to come after school. And we wouldn't have charged them any money, but for them to get that membership, they would have had to do 8 hours of community service to make the city a better place. But what is it now? Instead of spending a couple $100,000 to add some restrooms to the existing fire station that they'd been in for a short period of time, that's now the headquarters for the fire station. And where do our children have to go? Nowhere. Nowhere. And I grew up with the mindset, I'm the father of 6 children. If I do not find something good for them to do, they will find something bad all on their own. So let's get a mayor, let's get a city, let's provide leadership, and let's not be reactive, let's be responsive. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And Mr. Ash.
Talk about leadership. A few weeks ago, a couple of black gentlemen came to see me to talk about the statue of General Hatton. And very professionally, they said their point of view was that the statue should be removed to a different place. They mentioned Cedar Grove Cemetery. I explained to them at that time that the mayor does not have the authority to do anything with that statue. However, I think we should bring the two groups together, the sons and daughters of the Confederacy who own the statue. By the way, they don't own the land. The state has the right of way to the property that the statue sits on. Let's bring the owners of the statue together with these two gentlemen and other people in the black community, Miss Mary and Gary over here, Gary Ward, and several other members of the black community. Let's talk about it. I can't think of any problems that can't be solved by coming together and having rational conversation. And that's what we did. Now, up to this point, we have not really come to a conclusion. And honestly, I don't know if we will or not. We have 2 points of view. They're both good points of view. And I don't know if anybody wants to move or not. My suggestion was to leave the statue where it's at and to also honor someone in the black community. I know there were 1 or 2 black people who went to the North and fought for the Union. We know who they are, and that's just one example. I think probably the Black History Committee should be the one to choose how to honor that point of view or to complete that story of the Civil War. The statue is not the problem. As was mentioned before, racism is the problem. Racism is a plague that covers the United States everywhere, not just the South, not just the North, but we have racism in every community. I've lived long enough to see institutional racism done away with. It's not the law of the land anymore where black people can't vote, can't do this, can't do that. That part has been taken care of. Now we have individual racism. That is a matter of the heart. I don't know how to do that without other than Jesus Christ intervening in all of our hearts, black and white. So we will continue to work on these problems. Hopefully one day we will solve this. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now proceed with the closing statements. The order will be Mr. John DeMoor, Mr. Cesternino, Mr. Bell, and Mr. Ash. Each candidate will have 2 minutes for their closing statements. Mr. DeMoor.
Prosperity, growth, and preservation are my intent as your next mayor, in addition to demanding everyone obey all the laws. These can be done simultaneously and wisely. As mayor, I want to gather a coalition of banking and real estate experts to promote the sale and/or investment in properties that have laid dormant. One example is the Hartman Luggage Manufacturing Complex. I'm not talking about another layer of government. I am talking about communicating with private business to help our city gain investors so that we may grow with jobs, housing, and more investments in Lebanon. When the current virus panic is over, I want to already have Lebanon poised to move and move quickly as we shed the petty government nonsense of the recent past and replace it with mutual respect, cooperation, and prosperity. I want to be your next mayor. After the event today, I'll stick around and hand out business cards about my website, howtheyvoted.com, and be glad to speak with you. Thank you, and thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you. Mr. Cesternino.
We chose Lebanon as our forever home. It's the greatest city in the greatest county, in the greatest state, in the greatest nation. But we can always do better. Over the next few months, we're going to have disagreements, but I like Bernie Ash. I like him so much sometimes it makes me mad. I've been trying to get stuff to stick to him for 3 years, and I call him the Teflon mayor because I can't get anything to stick to that man. I like Rick Bell. If you look, when he and I served on the council together, we had a lot of the same opinions and we worked on a lot of things together. But now is the time for experienced leadership. We have a workforce of over 500 employees and a budget in excess of $50 million. But yet, it takes us 5 months to clean up a cemetery, and it took us less time to get the mayor in a mansion. If you go to Rest Hill Cemetery, the Black Cemetery, I have seen trash that has been there for a month. I have seen the gravestone of Private Owens laying on the ground and it was not knocked over by the weather. We have a city that has a case of 5 o'clock shadow. We need leadership that every day is focused first, last, and in the middle on you, the people that live here, the people that pay taxes, and the businesses that are here. We spend so much time talking about that next great thing, that next shiny new object, but we don't spend nearly as much time talking about the people that are here today, their children and their grandchildren that are going to be here
30
tomorrow.
seconds.
We need experienced leadership. We need fiscal responsibility. A 41% property tax increase in one of the greatest economies this world has ever seen. Ladies and gentlemen, what's going to happen when things go bad? We need leadership that's positive, results-oriented, can operate in a crisis, will listen to everyone, will provide leadership, will provide the quality of life and the future that we all know that Lebanon is capable of. We are good, we can do better. Thank you very much.
Mr. Bell.
This is my hometown. This is where I grew up. And this is where I will spend the rest of my life. I know for a lot of people, they like to retire to a beach house in Florida. I will not do that. The decisions I make as mayor, I will stay here and I will live with them. And I will look at them every day. And that means the decisions I make, I'll make with care. Now, there's 4 things I believe a good leader does. One of those things is listens. A leader doesn't know everything. He listens to the council. He listens to the citizens. He listens to other people in the area who are experts. A good leader communicates, lets you know what's going on, doesn't leave you in the dark when times are hard. A good leader makes decisions. They may be tough decisions, but a good leader makes decisions. And a good leader works hard every day. As mayor, I promise you, I will do all 4 of those things. I will serve you, I will work with you, and I will work for you to make sure that you get what you deserve, and this city has a positive future, and this city moves in the right direction. Thank you.
And Mr. Ash, your closing comments.
In 2008, I'm sure all of you remember, it was our recession. Things were bad, markets were down. I believe Mayor Craighead was mayor then, and rightfully so. He and the council put a freeze on hiring. People were laid off at the city, and that was the situation. Years later, things started to come back and grow. People hadn't been hired back to a great extent. Then the boom hit. People were building houses and apartments everywhere. Our population was growing by 100 a month. 2010, I think our population was like 26,000 people. We are bumping 40,000 people right now in Lebanon. When I came on in 2016, we had to do something, make sure that we continued services. I was handed a new fire station on Highway 109, which was very much needed. But my job now was to fill that fire station with firemen. We also needed policemen to come in. And if you own a business, you know that your biggest expense is personnel. And the same with the city. We not only needed firemen and policemen for public safety, we needed public works people.
30 seconds.
We needed public works people. We took care of all that with the budget. Things are working well, and I ask that you continue to vote for Bernie Ash so that we can continue the services, continue the prosperity that we have. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's give all the candidates a big round of applause. Some other people I would like to thank tonight before we conclude the program. If all the members of the Wilson County Black History Committee will please stand as the sponsors of this event, and let's give them a round of applause somewhere in the back. I certainly want to thank their leader, Mary Harris, who's been in communication with me over this event. I want to thank Bob and Pam Black for offering this wonderful venue once again for the veteran of our community. And I can now put back on my mask that I've taken off the whole night so my glasses didn't fog up. But I want to tell you about my mask. My wife made this for me. And it has, you probably can't see it from where you are, but it has a series of compasses to tell direction. Over the next 100 days, or now less than 100 days until the November election, each of you are going to be a compass for Lebanon. You are going to help set the direction and elect one of these four gentlemen to be the next mayor of Lebanon. Your input, your counsel, your questions, your conversations with them will help them as they set the direction for the city. I believe firmly that bright days are ahead, and eventually things will be back to not necessarily the old normal, but a different new normal than we have right now. Thank you again to the candidates, to the school board candidates. Please stick around because I'm sure people have questions. The questions that were posed tonight came from a number of different sources. I'm sure each of you in the audience probably had other questions that you would like to ask. Well, you will have other opportunities. Again, reach out to the candidates, ask your questions, have those discussions. I also want to announce on October 8th, as we get much closer to the election, there will be a debate format between the four candidates at Cumberland University. and all of you are certainly invited to attend that. But before we get to all that, if you haven't voted already in the primary, the days are ticking. Early voting is going on, so I would encourage you. Please go cast your vote. Please help be that compass and set that direction in that election as well. With that said, thank you all again for coming. Have a great night, and I can't believe we're getting out this early. Thank you.